It's the moment you've been waiting for.
Team Avatar is back! Air, water, earth, fire, fan and sword!
Avatar: The Last Airbender is officially on Netflix. Let's go, baby. All 8 episodes are available for streaming right now. You know I saw it. I am super excited to talk about this. Let's discuss. What is going on, everybody? It is I, yours truly, the Ace, here with my full series review to Netflix's Avatar: The Last Airbender. And before I get started, join me down in the comment section and let me know what you thought about the latest live adaptation to this iconic franchise. Also, let me know down in the comment section who your favorite Avatar: The Last Airbender character is. Who do you love on Team Avatar? Also, try to guess who my favorite character is. See how well you know the Ace. But I am super excited to talk about this series that just dropped. So without further ado, let's dive right in. Let's face it, Avatar: The Last Airbender, to me, is easily one of the best franchises, period. From the animation, to the style, to the storytelling, to the character development. All of that is top tier. Really hard to find another show that is complete like this one. It really grew with this audience and it just got better and better over time. One of my most rewatched series. I love this show. So when I found out that they were making a live action adaptation on Netflix, I was cautiously optimistic, especially considering the failure of the movie that shall not be named, which was a total stinker in the box office. Why wouldn't myself and a lot of people in the ATLA community be a little nervous? It's to be expected. But after seeing all the trailers, I was super ecstatic. Speaking of trailers, on a side note, appreciate each and every one of you who viewed my final trailer reaction, making it the most viewed non-live video on this channel. Appreciate you guys, and I hope this review surpasses that. So let's get into ATLA, Netflix's Avatar: The Last Airbender. If that catches on, I want you guys to come back here and say, Ace, you originated that. But what I just saw was absolutely astonishing, to say the least. Amazing how they're able to take this series and how well it translates to the small screen, and the way they're able to keep the essence of Avatar while also establishing its own approach to the lore was so perfectly done. I really enjoyed the addition of the different scenes that were added in the series because it's able to tell us a different perspective on the story that we already know. How they're able to not just focus on the lighthearted, quirky, humorous stuff, which it is in there and the comedic beats do hit, but instead it chooses to focus on a more grounded, a more darker story of these characters that we know. It's not just your usual interpretation of a live action adaptation brought to the screen. Instead, it's a riveting reimagining that just enhances the story and the lore that we love. Now let's get into the good. Even though I love that they added different stuff, this movie is at its best when it's mirroring the animation, whether it's the scenes, the fight sequences, the jokes, the references, the dialogue, especially the dialogue. Anytime they took anything from the original and put it in here, it put a smile to my face, got me excited on how well it actually translated to the big screen. Whether it was the opening intro on how well it paralleled from the original to the Siege of the North and how well it looked, it just hit on such a nostalgic level that all ATLA fans should appreciate. To be able to see scenes that we've seen, say that 5 times fast, executed perfectly to the small screen just adds to why this movie, to me, translated beautifully. The world of Avatar is brought to life with stunning visuals, jaw-dropping set pieces due to the attention to detail, from the props to the makeup department to the costume design. All of that are on point. It is portrayed perfectly whether you're on Omashu, Roku's Island, or with the Northern Water Tribe. It really feels like you are entirely immersed in this universe. Now let's talk about the bending and how it made each action sequence so spectacular. A lot of people were nervous about this, considering how bad the movie did. It's just crazy how we went from this to this. The difference is clearly night and day. The CGI on this is miles above what we saw from the movie. It was incredible how they were able to portray each style just like the animation, with a different martial art style being a different form of bending, and it absolutely worked. The earth bending looked amazing. Fire bending was on point. The air bending was probably my favorite. Definitely very OP in this. My least favorite is probably the water bending, because the majority of this movie, the majority of this series, it kind of looked like they were getting friendly splashed by water rather than just really hitting them. But it developed nicely over time as Katara's abilities formed and developed. Her fight with Paku was definitely top tier. Definitely very paralleled the actual fight in the animation. One of the best fights in this one. But yeah, the CGI and the bending, if you were worried about this, have no fear, because it was really good. Now let's talk about the performances by this young cast. Great job in my opinion. Portrayed perfectly, right down from how they look to the actual costume designs. Gordon Cormier as Aang, Kia Wentia as Katara, and Ian Owsley as Sokka do a great job chemistry-wise and also capturing the spirit of Team Avatar. Each character looks like they were pulled directly out of the animation. Starting with Gordon Cormier as Aang, looks exactly like Aang and does a good job at capturing that joyful youthfulness while also feeling a tremendous amount of pressure of being the Avatar. Kia Wentia, beautiful name by the way, does a great job at portraying Katara, because just like in the animation, Katara is the heart of the group, and you really feel that with her performance. Ian Owsley as Sokka might be my favorite character in the series.
That's right, I'm Sokka. It's pronounced with an aka. Young ladies, I rocked ya.
Does a good job at portraying his goofiness along with his bravery. Would have liked a little bit more to see the whole slapstick, him catching strays.
I'm starting to get some feeling back. Ow.
Like the animation, but I understand why they didn't do it, but it would have been hilarious to see. But he does a great job at keeping the team grounded in that leadership role, which is exactly how Sokka is. Also, I really enjoyed the chemistry between Sokka and Suki. They are one of the stronger relationships in Avatar. And it wasn't just they chose to stay away from the sexism of, I'm a man, I'm a warrior, how did we get beat by a bunch of girls type stuff. Instead, they actually bonded over both becoming warriors and learning from each other. And I really feel like their love story is believable. Like I said, it is one of the stronger ones, and I look forward to seeing how it develops in the future series. Now let's talk about two fan favorites, Zuko and Iroh. Great chemistry by these characters that's only amplified by the additional scenes that add heart and give us a different view of the surrogate father-son dynamic that they share all throughout this series. Especially that one scene where they did it, man. They had to do it. They played Leaves from the Vine, an emotional feel scene, and I'm just like I'm not crying, you're crying. Like, they really did it when they're playing it in the background. Really well done. One thing I'm gonna say, despite looking the part, I wasn't really feeling Dallas Liu's portrayal of Zuko. I'll get more into that in the mix section, but it just didn't really do it for me. But with adding Iroh to that, just added to the chemistry, because they are a great duo with such a strong bond. Few more characters to note. Azula, just like in the animation, is gonna be a problem. You can tell they are setting her up to be the main antagonist, kind of using the Zuko character, like they said, to kind of forge how menacing she's actually gonna be. So I look forward to seeing what they do with that in the future. Also, I like the direction they took General Zhao, where they played more into his underhanded sneakiness rather than his bold assertiveness. I thought that was a good touch. Lastly, I like the Yue character. She was great as well. Great chemistry with Sokka. And I loved how they actually teased the Yue theory. For those that don't know, the theory is Yue was next in line to be the Avatar if Aang had actually lived a natural life. That's why she was born in an empty vessel until she was touched by the spirits, which they referenced that a little bit in the dialogue, and that was just great fan service. The last thing I'm gonna say in the good section is this was really paced well, and it did get better and better with each episode. The first episode started really strong. 2 and 3 were okay. They were mostly setups, but it got stronger and stronger, and it aged well as it went on. Because there were things that, as I was taking my notes, I didn't really like at first. I was putting in the bad section, and I was putting it in the mixed section. And as the story continued, the payoffs were there, and so I had to start moving some stuff up the list. And I was like, wow, that was really well done. Like with how they incorporated Avatar Kyoshi. I wasn't happy with it at first because I'm like, are they just replacing her with Roku? But they used that as a way for Aang to kind of contact each of his previous Avatar incantations, depending on which, element that he was around. You know what I'm saying? Like when he was on Kyoshi Island, he was talking to Kyoshi. When he was on Roku Island, he was talking to Roku. When he was on the North Pole, he was talking to Keurig. And I thought that aspect was really good. I didn't really understand it until watching it further. So that's what I'm going to tell you guys. Definitely hold your opinions to the end, because if you judge it by them setting up, you might not like it. Like I said, I was kind of on the fence about some things, but it aged well. Now let's get into the mixed section. I'm gonna preface this by saying this isn't just the stuff that I'm mixed about, but what you as the general audience or fans of the lore might be a little bit on the fence about. So, I just wanted to put that out there. First and foremost, the different perspectives. I enjoyed it. Some people might not like it because they might want them to just stick to the actual, story of the animation. But I understand due to time restraints that they have to skip over some components. It's 20-something episodes in book 1. You can't expect them to, in an 8-series, hour-long episodes, be able to touch bases with everything. So some of the stuff is yada-yada'd over, said with exposition, which I'm okay with. And like I said, it does keep the story at a quick pace, but I can see how some fans would want to see this, if they'd be a little bit disappointed if they didn't get to see it on live action. But for me, it wasn't that big of a problem. Another thing I can see people possibly having a problem with is the changing of character traits that are pivotal towards character development. The one thing that the animation has over a lot of other series is that it is character development centric, meaning that is one of the best parts about this show. It is what keeps it strong because it grows with the audience, and the audience and the characters are constantly changing as we grow. Obviously this was a major topic of discussion a few days before the series had come out, where they were changing some things, like, Sokka being sexist, the Fire Nation, Aang's playfulness. Me, it didn't bother me because it still worked for the story that they were trying to tell. You can tell a good story and develop Sokka without him having to be sexist. You can make Aang a little darker so he's not so childish. It worked for me. Some people might take it as a disservice, but I think it was good for the story they were trying to tell. Last point I'm making this section, like I said, I had mentioned it in the good. The character Zuko, to me, left a lot to be desired. Not saying that the actor did a bad job. It wasn't very believable to the character that we know. And, I haven't really nitpicked, but it kind of bothered me because Zuko is such a pivotal character. His arc is one of the best arcs, period. Zuko's character is a character that often has trouble realizing his own self-worth. Zuko's character is a character that often has trouble understanding his own self-worth and realizes eventually that he is the master of his own destiny. I just had a hard time grasping that with this portrayal of him. Not saying that they can't tackle that in the future, but I just didn't see it. Things that were lacking were the passion, the anger, his biggest flaw, which is his temper. He can be reckless in the beginning, and he kind of came off as whiny to me. And it was just a turnoff. Like, it was cool because, like I said, they added more heart with him and Iroh. But I really would have liked to see that inner struggle with his character, because that is a driving force for him throughout the series. He has good, he has bad in him. And, they're going to have to do a better job, especially in, the book 2, towards the end of that, in order to see his inner struggle. It just seemed like they were using his character more to set up how menacing Azula is going to be in the future. When Zuko is such a legendary character with such a phenomenal arc. Like I said, it's not that it was terrible. It just didn't do it for me. All right, let's talk about the bad section. There's not a lot I didn't like about this series. Like I had said earlier, when I was taking my notes, there were things that I initially didn't like, but then as the story unfolded, it moved to the mix. Some moved to the mix, some moved to the good. Initially, I didn't like the dynamic of Hiyoshi replacing what Roku was doing for Aang. But then as the story unfolded, like I said, I kind of understood it a little bit more. I saw what direction they were taking it. So I guess I just had to be a little more patient. Also, you know, this is like I said, this is real petty. The characters didn't really keep low profiles. Like, they're just walking around the cities like it's, you know, you're Aang. You're the Avatar. You're Zuko. You're renowned for that scar. People are afraid of you, but you're kind of just walking around like, yeah, it's no big deal. You know what I'm saying? That's, like I said, that's a little petty nitpick. The two things that I actually did have a problem with was Appa and Momo are key characters, but in this, they're depicted more as pets. They don't play big roles. Appa, outside of him being transportation and a little bit in the fight sequence in the Siege of the North, you know what I'm saying, was portrayed. But they could have done better because these are genuine, you know, characters that stand out on their own that people love and want to see more of. Also, one of the things I didn't like was the non-existent love story between Aang and Katara. They touched base on some things, like with this series, it's not going based off books because they incorporated some things from book 2 into this series. The Cave of Love, they incorporated that. Aang wasn't involved in that at all. I didn't like that aspect. Also, when he emerged from the ice, Katara wasn't the first face that he saw, and that's really pivotal to both of their characters. Like I said, the love story was completely non-existent, and I wish they would have touched base more on that. Can they do that in the future in a different way? Absolutely. But I would have liked to see it done that way. Before I wrap this up, as usual, I want to give a shout out to each and every member of the channel. Appreciate you guys. Channel memberships are available down in the link in the description. So what's next for this series? In this section, I'm going to just say what I think needs to happen. So what's next for this series? In my opinion, what I would like to see next is a continuation of what we just saw. Innovative storytelling. Give us a couple of different scenes sprinkled with the original lore, the dialogue. Keep it, you know, very similar to what we saw. Like, this was perfect. I enjoyed it. Also, I don't want to say book 2 and 3 because they kind of took, you know, incorporated book 2 and 3 a little bit into this. So I'm just going to say the sequel. Going forward, they're going to need a much bigger budget. So you guys need to watch. Why I say that is because in book 2 and 3, it's so grand scale-wise. Like, just the Agni Kai scene between Azula and Zuko is so grand and glorious that they're going to have a big budget, especially with how expensive CGI is. So I want to see that stuff. I don't want this just to be a one-off. So, you know, that stuff is going to be so huge to see on the live action. Also, earlier I asked you guys who you thought my favorite character is. So if you stuck around this long, I appreciate you guys. You guys are the realest. My favorite character and somebody I would like to see is the greatest earthbender to ever live. Toph is absolutely my favorite character in this series. I can't wait to see them incorporate her in book 2 or the sequel. It's going to be a good time. She is, like I said, the greatest earthbender, and don't you dunderheads ever forget it. But overall, I absolutely loved watching this series. In my opinion, it was an absolute success. I am completely enamored by this lore. It is my favorite animation, and to see it on live action was absolutely riveting. I enjoyed this series so much. I highly recommend it to each and every one of you. As far as a grade, what do I give this? I'm going to give this an 8.5 out of 10. It just hit on every single level for me. Like I said, initially, I was very nitpicky on it, but as it went on, it started to grow on me. It was very well done. The action sequences, the CGI, the storytelling, the cast, the originality in adding stuff just all worked. I am a big fan of this, and I cannot wait to see what they do going forward, and it's gonna be great. But hit that like and subscribe, because I plan on covering a lot more of this series going forward. Plan on bringing a couple of people on here to discuss and take a deeper dive into this series, ATLA and NATLA, from different people's perspectives. So if you want to catch that, make sure you hit that subscribe. Make sure that notification button is on, so that way when I drop this, you'll know. But I appreciate each and every one of you for watching. As always, thank you for tuning into the Ace Avenue. I am yours truly, the Ace. Adios.